Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here for the first time, welcome. My name is Angela and I find my paradise through reading, and I am going to talk quickly about my August reading month. This is my August wrap up. It was a lovely reading month and I am really excited to talk about this. There's been a bit of a variety, obviously. Every month I try to make sure I have a variety of books that I'm reading, different genres, to keep things interesting. And this month, it was good. It was good. And if you watched my last video, I was selecting, maybe it wasn't, no, it wasn't my last video, but I did a video where I was selecting my August TBR, and I did not really stray from my TBR. Usually, I'm like, oh, these are the books that I want to read, and then next thing you know, something else like shiny catches my eye, and I end up just completely demolishing my TBR and reading like everything else. But this month, I really stuck to the books that I had selected. There was one that I added, which was a reread, and I'll talk about that. But other than that, I did stick to my TBR. I did not read all of the books that I had chosen, although I knew when I was picking these books that it was pretty ambitious. I knew I wasn't going to get to all of them, but that was fine. Like, I guess I would rather have more books so I don't like run out, I guess. I don't know, it's fine. But I'll get to those books, I guess, in September. But the ones that I did not get to read were Aragon by Christopher Paolini, Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke, and The Silmarillion, J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay, so those are the ones that I did not start. I didn't get to them at all this month. And the one that I did start but did not get it finished is A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. This is on my list of 100 greatest books ever written. I am 61 pages into this. It's about 240 some pages long. I'm struggling with this one. And I'm gonna stick it through. Because the books that are on the list of 100 greatest books ever written that I'm following, which is the Easton Press list, like whether I'm jiving with them or not, or understanding or whatever, I am finishing them. So I do not, what do you call it? Like DNF, do not finish, right? I do not DNF books on that list. Okay, so I will finish this, and I'm just gonna take my time. It's just hard for me to follow sometimes because I guess this is kind of like stream of consciousness in the main character, and so sometimes I'm not understanding, like there's no transition. So one minute, he's dreaming, and then he's not, and then there's just like a reality, and then sometimes there was a point where he had a dream about going home for, I guess, Christmas break, and he dreamt his dad was highly promoted and all of this and that, and next thing you know, like he wasn't dreaming, and he's in the infirmary, he's sick, and then there was like zero transition, and then he's home and they're having like this holiday dinner, and then I'm like, is this still a dream, or like what's going on? So it took a while that it was still going on. I was like, okay, so this isn't a dream. But yeah, and then I guess it goes a lot into like his mind and where things that he's observing, things that he's experiencing, things that he's thinking about. So there's just a whole lot of things. And then when you're thinking about that and just like all of the things that are going on in your mind at once, yeah, it's a jumble. So that's how I feel with this book, that things are kind of jumbled up. So there's like reality and present day current observations and interactions, and then other things that are going on behind the scenes, like in your mind. So, I mean, it is interesting. I'm just really struggling with it. So that's where I'm at with this one. I'll finish it. I'll finish it this month for sure. But okay. Then the book that I added to my August reads that was not on the books that I had selected as my August TBR was The Fellowship of the Ring, J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay, so I reread this this month, and well, here's why. Okay, so you guys know that I have been on this Lord of the Rings journey, and the more that it's like the more that I'm sitting with it, yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. But I read The Fellowship of the Rings last year, and then I read the other two, The Two Towers and Return of the King, this year, and then I read The Hobbit probably last month. And so when I read The Hobbit, things made sense, and so I kind of wanted to reread The Fellowship. And yeah, now I know why people can read this series or this book or whatever, however you want to call it. They can read it every year and just find new things all the time, because there was so much that I didn't pick up on in this first book. I mean, I thought it was okay. I loved the Hobbits. I loved the Shire. I loved the writing and the descriptions of everything. But I did feel like it was just a lot of walking, a lot of traveling, journeys, mapping things out. And I just couldn't pick up on a lot of other things that were going on. So then when I got through The Two Towers, Return of the King, The Hobbit, and then coming back to this and reading it again, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, so they did mention the Silmaril here, Beren and Luthien, I think that's what their names are, some of the history, yeah, and things that I had forgotten because it was like such a long story. And then here I am in Two Towers, A Return of the King, and I'm like, wait, where did, these things come from, or what did this happen, and because I had forgotten, because it was such a long story. By the time we got that far along, I was like, so this just kind of like reminded me of things. I don't know. It was a lot. So I definitely enjoyed this way more the second time around. And I think I'm gonna jump into it. I'm gonna read The Two Towers, do a reread of that during the month of September. And yeah, I'm just gonna rock it out again, because I really have been having a decent time with this. And I've been watching the movies. So I watched, okay, I think I only watched the first two. I haven't watched The Return of the King yet. But after reading these books and then watching The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers, I understand my confusion completely. Like, when I watched those movies, I thought they were entertaining, they were kind of cool, but I had no idea what was going on. Like, no idea. Like, whatever. I loved Legolas, and I still do. The elves, I think, are my favorite. What do you call them? Peoples, not peoples. My favorite. I'm brain dead. It's late. But anyway, my favorite beings. No. but you know what I mean. I love the elves, okay? But then my favorite character is Sam, okay? It's Sam. It's Sam. But as far as like the character, like gosh, I need that word. Race? Are they a race? But no, but they're not. Who knows? But elves are so cool. They are just so cool, and their craftsmanship is so cool. Their abilities, their clothing, just everything is just so cool. And I love like Sam's you know, he was like in awe of elves, you know, and he had always wanted to like see elves, and they're just so, I feel like, magical and neat. Just even the way they sound, and they're so musical when they speak, and then they're just so young, you know, looking and light on their feet and their movements, just everything about these elves. They are just, I love them so much. But I'm also watching the Rings of Power. So I watched season 1. I'm on episode 2 of season 2. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. But again, like I watched those movies and I was like, I had no idea what was going on. And then reading the books, like I feel like they left out like 90% of what was in these books. 90%. Like the movies, it was just jumping from one thing to the other. Boom, 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 boom. And a lot of the things that were happening in the movie were not true to what happened in the books. That's how it goes. But okay, I'm gonna leave that alone now because I'll keep talking about the Lord of the Rings. Anyways, let's get on to the next one. Okay, I read A Wolf for a Spell by Kara Sutton. Look at how gorgeous. I love this book. And it's just so, you see the girl here. This is Baba Yaga. You have the castle back there, the wolf. Oh my goodness. This book was, I really enjoyed this book. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. Okay, so this is following, what's her name? Zima. And she is a wolf. And there's just, you know, there's the forest, and then like the wolves, you know, are really like against and scared of Baba Yaga, the witch in the forest, you know, and it's like, don't talk to her, don't get near her, whatever. Same with humans. If you see a human, kill them, because, you know, humans have been encroaching into the forest and hunting wolves and trying to, you know, expand their space and like get rid of the forest. So there's just like, you know, a lot of this going on. And oh my gosh, I'm kind of gonna leave it there. This was just a wonderful, like a Baba Yaga tale with just magic and switching bodies and, you know, a cruel prince and finding out who you are. And this was just so fun. To me, the biggest message in here was, you know, Baba Yaga, she's in the forest, and she knew about something terrible that happened that was very, very wrong. And she was like, well, I'm just gonna live my life. That has nothing to do with me. You know, that's a terrible thing. It's unfortunate, but you know, doesn't affect me at all. But ultimately, it ended up affecting her and everyone in the forest. The whole forest itself ended up in danger, and it was just kind of like that message, like, you know, speak out, you know, or, you know, do something when there's like some sort of injustice or something going on, because you might think it has nothing to do with you, but it most likely does. You know, it's a chain reaction, and things will circle back around. I have a tab in here. Let me see what oh, you know what? This tab is like kind of exactly what I was talking about. So this says, for so long, she'd been content to stay in her hut and let the problems of the outside world pass her by as though they didn't concern her. But they did. The forest was now in danger because of her mistake. No, her choice. So that's exactly what I was talking about. And it goes on to say, of all the evils in the world, the greatest was the temptation of the easy path over the right one. So that is that. Highly recommend this book. I thought it was so fun, and I loved that it was one, like it had illustrations all throughout, which was just a lot of fun. Look, like the illustration styles were really neat, and it really gave it, and the way it was written, it was very kind of fairy tale-ish folklore. So, I don't know how else to describe it, but it didn't have like loads and loads of like, I think, details. But it was so neat. It was so neat. So yeah, I enjoyed this book. I really did. It was a quick read, even though it's like, 314 pages. It's like a children's book. And with the illustrations, it really didn't take long to read at all. It was a lot of fun. Okay, let me go on to my other one, which was Ember and the Ice Dragons by Heather Fawcett. I read this. I actually finished this yesterday. And again, a lot of fun. I had such a good time with this. This is a children's book, and this is following Ember, this little girl who, her father put a spell on her. He found her. She was like this little baby dragon, and her parents had been hunted down and killed. And this like magical scientist guy, I don't know how you want to call it, but they're called stormmancers. And he found the baby dragon and came up with a spell to turn her into a little girl. And so he raised her, and this was just, so she's a fire dragon, and then she ends up going to, I think, Antarctica, so that she doesn't keep catching on fire by accident or something like that. But then there's ice dragons there. There's like this big hunt of the ice dragons, and like the scientists are trying to stop the hunting of these dragons, but they're like so valuable, like their scales and what's called a heartstone. I mean, there's just so much, but this is just a lot of adventure. There are some like hard parts to read, like really sad, because when it's talking about like when they're like killing these dragons, and it sucks. It just like breaks your heart. But there's like friendship, and yeah. I recommend this. I think this was a really good time. So that's Ember and the Ice Dragons. I think. Yeah, and then she finds some friends, and she was just like never one to like, she never had friends her age, because she always knew, I guess, that she was different. And just didn't know how to interact with children, but she ends up finding friends, and it was just really sweet and special. Loved it. Other book, oh my gosh. So A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Okay, first of all, let's take a moment to see how like gorgeous this book is. Okay, it's part of like this boxed set that I got, and love it. Like, I enjoyed just carrying this around and looking at it because it was just so beautiful. So beautiful. And it's small, like it's like this cute little book, and it feels nice. It brought me joy actually, I still have my bookmark in here. It brought me joy just like having it with me. And I actually have seen the movies, both movies. Well, I'm sure there was more than two, but there were two versions of A Little Princess that I saw. The first one was with Shirley Temple. And then the other one was released in maybe early 90s, I want to say. But anyway, both movies I absolutely loved. I cried, bawled my eyes out in both of them. This book though. Okay, first of all, neither of those movies really were true to how the book played out and what actually happened. So there's that. There's definitely that. And oh my gosh. So if you don't know, this is following Sarah. She is a little girl who was living in India with her father. And then her father sent her to, I guess, England to he went with her to England to put her in a boarding school for young girls. And she used to stay there in that school until she was done with her schooling, and then he'd come and get her, I guess. But he was extremely wealthy, and so she was like the most wealthy child in this school. So he's like, no expense spared, get her anything and everything she wants. So she had her own carriages, she had the most beautiful, luxurious clothing, she had her own maid. So there's all that, but she had such a kind soul, and and she was so sweet, and she had this mentality, and she always told herself, like, to act like a princess no matter what. And she was so wise beyond her years and kind. And so anyways, something unfortunate happened to her father, and so he was no longer able to send money to the school. And so the headmistress of this school was like, and she was always like, she always hated this girl, like, because she was very, I would say, like, jealous. We will, like, she's a hater. And she was just like, oh, this little girl thinks she's all that, and she just a miserable woman. So she jumped on the opportunity of little Sarah's misfortune because she didn't have a mom, so now she's an orphan. And so she took her beautiful room away from her, all of her beautiful clothes, anything and everything that she owned, and then stuck her in this like tiny, gross, uninsulated place in the attic with the other servant girl. And they treated her horribly. I mean, she was treated horribly. And through it all, like, she's still trying to be a little princess, and treat people like nicely and stuff. So this book was it was so sweet. Like, it was so sad, and my heart broke for her, but I felt so full as well. Like, my heart was just so full, and I was happy at the same time. And it was just, yeah. And so I did have some tabs in here. Let's see what I think. If nature has made you for a giver, your hands are born open, and so is your heart. And though there may be times when your hands are empty, your heart is always full. And you can give things out of that: warm things, kind things, sweet things, help and comfort and laughter. And sometimes gay, kind laughter is the best help of all. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm not gonna read that because I'll probably cry. You see, now that trials have come, they have shown that I am not a nice child. I was afraid they would. Perhaps, wrinkling her forehead wisely, that is what they were sent for. Adversity tries people, and mine has tried you and proved how nice you are. How is it that animals understand things I do not know? But it is certain that they do understand. Perhaps there is a language which is not made of words, and everything in the world understands it. Perhaps there is a soul hidden in everything, and it can always speak, without even making a sound, to another soul. This is long. Let me see. When people are insulting you, there is nothing so good for them as not to say a word. Just look at them and think. When you will not fly into a passion, people know you are stronger than they are, because you are strong enough to hold in your rage, and they are not. And they say stupid things they wish they hadn't said afterward. There's nothing so strong as rage, except what makes you hold it in. That's stronger. It's a good thing not to answer your enemies. So there's just, oh my goodness. So she makes some really heartfelt, true friends that were her friends when she was wealthy, and then they stayed her friends even when she was poor. Yeah, sweet, 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 sweet book. Loved this so much. So much. Okay. Then we have, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Okay, so Michelle Zauner is a Korean American woman. Can you see her right there? Let me try to get close. Okay. I didn't know that. So my colleague just kind of handed me this book. It's like, oh, I just read this book. Here, you can read it. I read it, and it was, what I love about books is that each person that reads it gets something different out of it. Because each person is different, right? So right away, because I knew nothing about this book at all, but when I read the dedication, this is what I saw. Let me see if I can you see it? Okay, so, and that's Korean writing, and it was cool because it says for Oma, so mom. This is for mom. And I was like, oh shoot, like I'm studying Korean, and it was really cool that right away in the dedication there was like a Korean word that I understood. I was like, Oma. Oh, okay. And so throughout the book, there's not in Korean writing, but it's like phonetically spelled instead of written in Korean. Obviously, because, we're not, most of us readers can't read in Korean. But I found that super interesting because I'm here reading these words and it'll say like, I don't know, Hankuk Haksyo. Hangu Haksyo. Anyway, so it's kind of sounded out like in English letters, and I'm like, Hangu Haksyo. Oh, that's Korean school. And so like her parents had sent her to a Hangu Haksyo. So that's kind of all throughout the book, and I'm like reading these words and trying to figure out, I'm like, wait, I know that, in Korean. So that's what I enjoyed the most out of this book. This book is sad. Okay, this is a true story. This is Memoirs. She, her mother was Korean, her father was American, and her mother got diagnosed with cancer. So this is kind of about that. So it's a lot about the culture, her culture and her identity and her family, and just like finding who you are and connecting with who you are and your history. And just it was a lot. There were a couple parts that I just like, oh my goodness, like destroyed my heart and were like so sad. But this was a really cool book. It was really interesting to read about like all the food, it was interesting like how food really connected her to her mom. And that's why it's called Crying in H Mart, because H Mart was a store that they would go to. They would drive there and they would have like Korean or ingredients that you would need to make Korean foods that you can't find in regular stores. And so it was like her experience with food and using food as a way to connect with her culture and with her mom, and learning how to make these foods. It was just, it was, oh man. So I did enjoy this. Absolutely recommend. Maybe not for everybody. I don't know. I guess I could say there is that trigger warning. There is like death of, mom and cancer. But no, it was good. It was good. I really enjoyed, like, what I enjoyed and what I got out of it with the Korean words was really cool. Which other people, I guess, wouldn't even think anything of it. So, okay. And the last book that I read was Toni Morrison's Sula. Okay, I finally read this, and this is my second Toni Morrison book. The first one that I read was Beloved, and I wanted to read Sula next because I know Jack from Jack in the Books, or Jack Edwards. He's a booktuber, and this is like one of his most favorite books of all time. I guess I can see why. I am still, okay, here's what it is. I am still absorbing it. Like, this is like a slow burn. This is like a slow absorption. And like, the more you think about it, the more you're just like, it just like seeps into like your soul, kind of. The writing, obviously, Toni Morrison killed it. Like, she kills everything. She's just amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Her writing is phenomenal. So I absolutely enjoyed her writing. And so this is, I think this kind of starts maybe like late 1800s. Let me see. Is it late 1800s when they like got the bottom? I don't know. I think, okay, 1919. Okay. So I guess the first chapter is 1919. But before that, there was I guess the story is there was this black man who did some work in exchange for land. So when all this work was done, these people were supposed to give him so many acres of land. And then when the work was finished, they convinced him to take the very high hill land, which was like hard to work. It was susceptible to extreme climate and everything because it was so high up there, and the valley land was like nice and fertile and easily worked and very good land. And so he was like, oh no, what are you doing? Like, what am I supposed to do with land all the way up there? And then these people told him that that's the best land because it's closest to heaven. And they said, that those hills up there, they're the bottom of heaven. And so that land became known as the bottom. And which was funny because people would say, I'm going up to the bottom. So they're going up to the hill, which they call the bottom because it's the bottom of heaven. So I thought that was funny, all throughout the book, because they're like, oh yeah, up in the bottom, or I'm going up to the bottom. And but yeah, this is crazy, this book. The main character, Sula, reminded me a little bit of Beloved. Like, she had some kind of like inner evil in her. I don't know what her deal was. Like, she just did not care. But there was a lot going on in here. There was a lot. This was about community. This was about family, about the difficulty, that Black people faced, when they were trying to like find work, and trying to make their homes like in this area that was just so harsh. But it was, it just had like so many really cool stories, and the characters were just really neat. And, just so many struggles. Like, the struggles were just unbelievable. Oh my gosh, these struggles. But there was just so many good lines. There was so much good in here. There really, really was. And I think I would absolutely reread this, honestly. I would absolutely, yeah, I would reread this. Because it's one of those, like, I'm going through it the first time and it's slowly sinking in. And, for a while, like, I was like, I don't even know what this book is about. It's going from one person's point of view to another point of view, talking about like a couple different families. And then it's just kind of like, no. But I think I would have like an even deeper appreciation for this the second time around. But I have like one tab here. And okay, Sula. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. This girl's on her deathbed, okay? I hope that's not a spoiler. Okay. Sorry for the spoiler, but I'm just gonna say it. But and she had really like done her best friend wrong. Like, she did her best friend, like her only friend, honestly, she did her so wrong. So Sula's on this deathbed. This woman who really shouldn't even have bothered, but she went to make sure, to check on her and see how she's doing. And they're just having this conversation, which was like so harsh, but oh my gosh. But let me see. Let's say, ooh. Okay, so who is saying this? I mean, you think, no. Okay, so this starts with Sula, okay? She says, you think I don't know what your life is like just because I ain't living it? I know what every colored woman in this country is doing. What's that? Dying, just like me. But the difference is they dying like a stump. Me, I'm going down like one of those redwoods. I sure did live in this world. Really? What have you got to show for it? Show? To who? Girl, I got my mind and what goes on in it, which is to say, I got me. Lonely, ain't it? Yes, but my lonely is mine. Now your lonely is somebody else's, made by somebody else and handed to you. Ain't that something? A secondhand lonely. Like, this lady's savage. She is savage. She does not care. But one of my favorite things about Sula, like, she really, like I said, like, she doesn't care. And she started a whole lot of like turmoil in the town. But because of her, I don't want to say like wicked ways or whatever, it's like people became better. Like, women wanted to be better mothers to their children because like Sula kind of scorned motherhood and didn't want anything to do with motherhood. And so these women like had this new pride, like, oh, I'm gonna show like how wonderful of a mother I am. And then women ended up like taking better care of their husbands and showing more love to their husbands. And their marriages were stronger because, for one, they didn't want their husbands like going over there and like sneaking off and messing with Sula. And then the ones that did like got their feelings hurt, because she like used them once and dumped them. So there was just like a lot of good, I guess, that came from her just being like a terrible person. And then it's like when she passed, like everything just kind of like boom, like just stopped, and people were back to like being their like regular selves, or just the nonsense, I guess. Because that threat, it's like everyone coming together and being stronger when there's like a threat. And then when the threat is gone, it's like, oh, and you're kind of back to like hating everybody again. Okay, like we see that happen all the time. So yeah, that was that. So, I mean, what I tell you, I told you, it was a good reading month. It was a really good reading month. I mean, the only thing that I've been struggling with, Portrait of Artist as a Young Man, but I'm going to keep going on with that. But everything else, I think, everything else was awesome. Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go for now, and happy reading, you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.